most men are not in rooms where we are going to help elevate you, push you forward, push you to grow, challenge you respectfully, right?
We have this, internal battle between where we want to be coherently and consciously and where we want to be physically. Physically, we want to be in the nice, comfy chair. But every time I'm in the nice, comfy chair, all I can think about is how it's killing me.
But I spanked him so hard, he fell. And when he fell, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I went to go pick him up, and he did this. Like literally, don't hurt me. And I was like,
welcome to Find Another Zero podcast. Larry Hagner.
that might be the best intro I've ever heard.
This is what we do here, bro. Shit just happens, man. My good friend Larry's with us today in the studio. I am Bart Pietrzak, CEO of Project Power Gym. You see behind us, Larry, my fucking very good friend. He has a massive, massive contribution to the world called the Dad Edge. I want to make sure I get it exactly right. Podcast, huge. I mean, how many episodes you got? Like 4 zillion right now?
We are actually just shy of 1,200 now.
Yeah, that's
which
awesome.
is crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you've interviewed McConaughey. Like you've been able to fly out and meet some really cool people and do some really cool things, man.
It's been fun, man.
It has been, I'm sure. And why I'm so excited to talk to you is because not only do you have a wealth of knowledge yourself, but now you've had experiences that have opened eyes and ears to new experiences that you haven't personally had. So like your ability to kind of just make that into a nice ball of information is enticing for me. So I need you to repeat right before we started rolling those 6 things that you said, everybody.
Oh, the 6 basic human needs?
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
It's really interesting, man. I mean, and the interesting thing too is not only do human beings have 6 basic human needs, right? And I'm not talking about food, shelter, clothing, right?
Okay.
We're talking about different things, more like relational, emotional, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So men and women have 3 basic needs as it relates to relationships with each other, but human beings have 6 basic needs, which is certainty, uncertainty, love, growth, contribution, and community. And that if you really think about what a human being is after, it's really those things. Like we need to have, a lot of us chase certainty, right? That we'll take that one first. It's like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because I know I'm going to get this particular outcome, right?
Yeah, of course.
And a lot of times too, human beings, we just get really uncomfortable if we're not certain on something. It causes anxiety, right? But on the flip side, we also need variety, which is uncertainty, right?
Correct.
We also need to not know what's coming next because we're curious and we want that adventure aspect.
Okay.
The growth piece, I would say people go through seasons of this, right? But growth is something that it can show up in a really good way and can also show up in a bad way, and I'll explain that. So like growth, people go, and people like this, and so do I, that they're just like, I just want to grow. I want personal development. I want to be more, do more, and all that. At the same time, if people aren't growing, then they feel that too. Mm-hmm. But they usually sometimes just don't know what it is. They'll be like, I feel stuck, I'm stagnant.
Yeah.
And that's where that, like, I want to grow. And sometimes people just don't know the first step to do that. Community, that's another one. And we can talk about that at length too, especially with men. I'll tell you, there was actually a poll done, and I can't remember who did it, but the most recent statistics show that men between the ages of 28 and 52, only 13% of men in between that age have a friend that they can actually call a best friend. And I'm not talking about the guy that you...
13%.
13%, yeah. And I'm not talking about the guy, you see at work or like the guy you work out with. I'm talking about the guy you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, man, like I'm in trouble. I need you to come pick me up. Like 13% of guys have a guy like that in their life.
I've seen a lot on Instagram, like reels and stuff, talking about this concept specifically about like men having their circle and their actual best friend and what it actually looks like and how uncommon it actually is.
It's really uncommon. Well, if you think about it too, like, and going back to the community aspect, when we were younger, like grade school, high school, even college, everyone's got common ground and everyone's kind of in the same boat, and you're more open about your life, and
True.
You want people in, and you're seeking that community. As we get older, especially men, like we get really involved in our careers, especially when we start having kids, and we start to feel this battle internally of like, okay, well, if I'm not with family, then I need to be providing and working. well, if I'm not providing and working, I need to be with family. So men like really have this guilt about like going outside of those two circles.
100%.
But the thing is that we absolutely freaking need that, man. But here's the other thing too, when it comes to community, like, and you know this as well as I do, you worked for First Forum, and you know, Andy Frisella is always talking about this, that most men are not in rooms where we are going to help elevate you, push you forward, push you to grow, challenge you respectfully, right? We're actually in rooms with men that continually feed, you know, perhaps the season that we're in or where we're stuck at and that kind of thing. And they really don't push us forward. The other thing too is most conversations with men, if not in a good community, will be, you know, how's work? Good.
Right.
How's family? Of
course.
Oh, we're fine. We're busy. You know, it's like good, fine, busy are the three answers we hear all the time. But that's, community is so important, man.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this though, because I also have, I wouldn't say personal evidence, but I'll say I'll hear, in the unmotivated man or the unmotivated guy who likes to drink with his buddies on the weekends, doesn't do anything but goes hunting and fucking plays video games. Like, I don't know that person personally because that's not the circles I run in. But what I hear people complain about, generally that's the aspect I hear more than I hear overproductive, overly ambitious, takes no time for himself. I hear more of like giant children essentially who...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Right? So that can be the same. Even though that guy goes and hunts with his buddies and drinks with his buddies, those buddies aren't there to challenge each other to make each other better.
Right.
They're there to make sure no one gets out of the circle.
Right.
Because then no responsibility is given to the circle.
Yeah.
No accountability is given to the circle.
Right.
No one has to be better because we all keep each other worse.
We do. Yeah. Or keep each other stuck. And if you really think about it, if you're in a group where, you know, the group of guys are doing nothing but complaining about their wives or what a pain in the ass their kids are, if that's not sitting well with you, then that's your intuitional intelligence to go find a different room, go find a different tribe, go find a different community. I mean, and I think that there's always a time and a place for like, go hunting, you know, go out and have a few drinks with your friends if that's what you want to do. Like, I still have friends of mine from college that I'm hanging out with a few of them actually next weekend, where we're going to go out to dinner and we're probably going to have a few drinks and we're going to talk about stupid surface level stuff and all the memories from college. But that's not my group of guys that I'm going to go have a conversation with like, hey, I'm looking to deepen the communication with my wife. I'm looking to be more patient with my kids, or maybe it's my faith, or maybe it's, you know, building more wealth or just personal development in general. Those are not the guys to have that conversation with.
Yeah.
But I still hang out with guys like that. It's just very rare. And it's far and few between, but that's not the tribe that I'm going to push somebody else forward and they're going to do the same for me.
So you're going to go into it kind of knowing that there's shit that's going to rub you the wrong way, either that they say or that they act like, and you're just going to just accept it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not the circle.
It's not the circle. I don't necessarily believe in, especially if you have a decent relationship with someone, to like burn the boats and cut ties with people, because I think that they're different depths and different levels of relationships that you have with different individuals. Like, so for instance, like, I'm a client of yours, you know, and the conversations that I know that I can have with Bart are very, very different than, you know, let's just say a guy I went to college with, right? Because I know that I can talk to you about, for instance, like the challenges with being an entrepreneur, right? The challenges of leading a team, your employees. And we can exchange ideas and we can sharpen each other and we can give each other advice, you know, and that's not the conversation I'm gonna be having with these other guys. Yeah,
because do you think there's a lack of maybe this is the wrong word, but like a lack of respect for their opinion because there's not a relatable concept in their life that applies to what I'm going through?
Yeah, and I think people are at different stages, you know, like, so if a guy is, like you said, just I actually had a friend of my wife's ex-husband. Okay. So we had zero in common. But he was still kind of like literally like plays video games like a maniac. Yeah. And gave up his corporate job and is now working at a gas station.
On purpose.
On purpose. And him and my wife's friend split up. He's got his own place now. And he was fun and entertaining to hang out with, but he's not the he's not the guy that I can relate to as far as like, you know, talking about connecting with your boys because like he's playing video games 8 hours a day.
Right.
So it's just different.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think every relationship, you can have a degree of a relationship with somebody, but the depth that you're looking for, it needs to be different, I think, for men who want to grow.
So I kind of maybe think about it like this, like every single part of you, you can identify, right? So you've got your deep part, you've got your fun part, you've got your sporty part, you've got, you know, you got all these different character traits,
right?
For example, and not to have like a multiple personality disorder, but the concept is I don't display all of my things at the same time.
Right.
Right. There's moments where depth is at the surface. There's moments where playfulness is at the surface. There's points where I'm sillier than shit and not responsible whatsoever with things I say or do. But that's not how I am all the time. So is it more about like it's the environments I choose is what part of me I want to be more or maybe grow more? Because, for example, if I'm overly worked, I'm stressed to the gills, I have too much depth, I have too much spinning plates, I want to go hang out with the guys who talk about stupid shit and go hunting and don't do anything heavy. Like, because I don't want to be heavy right now.
Yeah.
I don't have time for heavy. I don't have emotional capacity for
Sure.
heavy. Right. So it's not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
It's just what percentage of your day do you want to be which percentage of that personality, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that there's a time and a place to like, you know, just let loose a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily be chasing after like, you know, deep personal development and growth and that kind of thing. But I would caution people that that's like should be only about 5% of your time.
Yes.
You know, like it's more of like go out, have some fun, but make sure you get back to it, right?
No
Because
doubt.
I think where people really get tripped up is they go out and they have some fun, and then that day turns into 2 days, and then it then turns into a week, and then suddenly like it's the same thing with like, you know, we're doing this podcast at a gym, you know, it's like where people have a regimen like for New Year's, you know, like, hey, in the next 3 months I'm going to do this, and then, you know, they go full bore for a few weeks, and they miss like one workout, and then they miss two, and then they miss like a week, and then they're like, well, I guess it's just done. And it's, you know, it doesn't have to be that way.
Sure. Yeah. What you're also skewed. I mean, you've done really great things in your life. You have a great family. I mean, I want to talk about the dad edge a little bit more. Our understanding of our stress level and capacity for work is an evolution as we get older, right? The shit at 18 that I thought I could handle versus the shit at 35 that I think I can handle.
Yeah.
Vastly fucking different. It's the same 24 hours.
Right.
It's the same energy levels inside my body, hormones, everything's the same. But my understanding of what work is and what load is and what stress is changes as I adapt to my understanding of how much I can handle. Just as the same where you walk into the gym for the first time and you see some dude benching 500, you go, that load is impossible for me. And at that time, it is impossible for you. But if you load up 135 for a couple months, 225, 315, 405, over time you go, wow, I am capable of so much heavier loads than I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And as an entrepreneur, as a dad, and as a man, if that's not changing for you, you're fucking it up. You're doing it wrong. Because if you take the same load that you could handle at 22, and that's the same load you can handle at 37, you have fucked your time up. You have not pushed yourself. You have not tried.
Yeah.
You right?
And I think we all know people like that.
No
right?
doubt.
And we also know people the other direction, right? Who just, they go full throttle into growth and being the best version of themselves. And then you have people that are just kind of in between, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. The people that I see do the best, right? And you know this as well as I do, in any area of your life, whether it's entrepreneurship, business, your career, your finances, your marriage, your kids, whatever it is, they are a constant student. Like they're always curious, right? It's like I am unfinished. Yeah. Like, and I love that term too. Like when, you know, I'm an unfinished man.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because it really just opens you up to the possibility of always being curious.
Yeah.
You know, the most successful people in the world, and no matter what they do, they consider themselves a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. They've never reached the top. Mm-hmm. They're constantly learning. They're constantly trying to sharpen their edge. And I think that's the difference maker, right? There are people that are stagnant who are not going to be lifelong learners. And there are people that are going to be like, no, I'm going to learn something every day.
That whole reason why the podcast is called Find Another Zero, the whole reason is because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay. That stagnation of I've accomplished a little something. I'm at least comfortable, right? And they never want to feel uncomfortable again, because when you're a learner, you start at zero.
You do. Yeah.
You start at zero.
Yeah.
And if you don't keep finding shit that you're starting at zero from, you have no capacity to keep exhausting your potential.
Right.
Right. So you have to constantly find shit that you suck at, find stuff you don't know about, find things that I'm in this circle and I know less than everybody in here.
Right.
I can do less than everybody in here. And that's the phenomenal circle to be in, because all you have is potential growth.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
Yeah, it's fascinating you're talking about. Do you know who Sean Patrick Flanery is? The actor?
Yeah,
he
I
was
think
in
so.
Boondock Saints, and he was
Yeah,
Powder.
you interviewed him, right?
I did. He was also in Nefarious, and so
that was awesome.
oh my gosh,
I
dude,
love
that's
that
crazy.
movie.
And that's some of the best acting I've ever
Yes.
seen. But so I reached out to Sean Patrick Flanery just on Instagram, and I didn't even expect for him to answer. And I'm just like, hey man, like I've got this podcast. Like I loved your role in Nefarious, and I've been a fan of yours forever. I know you have 2 boys. I'd love to interview you on the Dad Edge. And he responded, man, right away. And he's like, yeah, when you want to do it? I'm like, holy shit. And I even asked him, I was like, is this really you or is this your team? He's like, no, it's me. And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, how about this day? And so he came on, and one of the best interviews I've ever heard from somebody else, right? The best message. What I thought would probably be 30 to 45 minutes was an hour-and-a-half interview, but to your point, right? So Sean Patrick Flanery is not only an actor, but he's a 4th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
So he's been doing it for 20 years. And his boys, I think both of his boys just won state in wrestling.
Okay.
And so he brought his boys into the interview, and he's
sick.
just he is as humble as they come, like an everyday guy. Like there's hardly any Hollywood in him. And he's like, if you really, really want to be good at something, be okay with sucking at it. Like absolutely being so uncomfortable that you have 2 left feet that you absolutely suck at it. He's like, I tell my students that in jiu-jitsu all the time. I tell my boys that all the time. And that is one of the most uncomfortable things for any human being to do. It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm not good at it. Or I don't want to do that because I don't want to fail.
That's right.
And his message to his students, himself, his boys is like, oh no, you should suck at it.
Yes.
You should fail at it.
Dude.
Like, go out and be willing to suck at it. And that's really okay, because in order for you to be damn good at something, you're probably going to have to suck at it first.
Dude, tell me something that you don't respect more than someone who's visibly uncomfortable, obviously out of place, and giving it their fucking all.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing that I will hug that person.
Yeah.
I think you're the coolest person ever, because so few people are able to do that and stick with it and push through. Like all the time you see, especially with social media and highlight reel entertainment, which is what we have now, the best of everything. And everyone's like giving accolades to the guy who can squat 500 and this and that. And that's cool. But the person who's, giving it everything they got because they're getting nothing in return.
Yeah.
Literally not even the enjoyment of doing it because they can't, dude.
Right.
Give me that guy on my team every fucking day.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Dude, what can you not throw in that person's way?
Yeah.
What would you be untrusting of that person to try to do? Because if they're willing to do that with nothing, dude, you give them a little traction, they'll kill it.
Yeah. I agree.
That's funny because my dad actually gave me that concept indirectly. We didn't have a great relationship, but my dad was a horrible social person, like egomaniac, had to be right, would berate you for being wrong. Like person-to-person interaction was not my dad's strong suit. But he was hella intelligent, extremely athletic, very creative. Like the dude was just on it when it came to shit. Well, because of that, his follow-through throughout his life was rather low because he would gain 70 to 80% ability into something, and then he'd get bored and then would try to do something else. And so throughout my childhood, I was exposed to so many different aspects of everything, from putting a TV together with nothing but like little tiny instruments. And we went snowboarding in Colorado. Then he showed me how to flip a motorcycle like over a wall and like jump off of it midair because he was a stuntman in Poland.
What?
Like the capacity of shit that I was like thrust into
Yeah.
was insane, which made me a pussy because all of it made me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Constantly being pushed past my comfort zone that all I ever fucking wanted to do was be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at my adolescence to my early teens to even my early 20s, I walled myself off to the world so that nothing could make me uncomfortable ever again. And that's when like my trajectory of like my personal life went really down. And then now it's the opposite again, and I'm following in those same footsteps.
Yeah.
But if you can develop one skill as a human being, as a man, as a woman, as a whoever, develop the skill of not being embarrassed to be bad at something.
Oh yeah. Don't be embarrassed to fail, to face plant. I just interviewed Dr. Michael Gervais, which he's the
Sounds familiar.
He's the sports psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
And he just wrote a book, came on the podcast, and he said something that was another one of my most favorite interviews. But he talked about this. Obviously, he's a doctor of psychology. He's like, think of it this way: your brain is a 3.5 pound organ that sits in your skull. That its entire duty is its entire job is to keep you alive, and it's to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And it's to keep you comfortable. Right. Exactly what you just said. He's like, so you have to know that your brain doesn't want you doing risky things. Your brain wants just to keep you alert of danger and to make sure that you're operating to keep you alive. So that's the hardware. Brain is the hardware. The mind is the software. And you always have to be upgrading the software. He's like, think about it this way. The iPhone, it has these updates, right? You have to do, I think we're on the update like 17.2 or I don't know what it is.
All of it. I have no idea.
He's like, think of how the iPhone would not be operational or wouldn't be up to date with today's technology if we were still on iOS 8, right? He's like, but you have to constantly be upgrading that software. And when you're not, that's when the survival brain takes over and wants to keep you really damn comfortable.
I love that.
Yeah.
So that's where, the self-development books and the podcasts and the thirst for knowledge kind of comes from.
It does.
Is like we have this, internal battle between where we want to be coherently and consciously and where we want to be physically.
Right.
Physically, we want to be in the nice, comfy chair. But every time I'm in the nice, comfy chair, all I can think about is how it's fucking killing me.
Right. Same.
Right?
Yeah. I don't like it either.
Right.
Yeah. But I also think there's a danger with that too.
Of course.
Because, if you really look at there is a, do you know who Dr. John Deloney is? Have you ever heard of him? So he is going to be one of these successors for Dave Ramsey when Dave Ramsey retires, which is going to be soon. So John Deloney is one of 4 individuals who's going to be taking over Ramsey Solutions, like in all their stuff.
Jeez.
But he's one of the coolest individuals I've ever met. I actually was just in Nashville and met him face to face, and he's got like this really fascinating outlook on busyness. And he talks about like if you have a problem, there's a time and a place to always make yourself uncomfortable, to grow and all that. However, it can also be dangerous if you can't sit and just be. Mm-hmm. Like if you actually can't sit and like rest or be with your kids and hang out with them and play a game and be okay with it versus playing a game and being like, I have so many emails I have to do. I have to do this and this. I have to do this and that. The busyness almost becomes an addiction to where like the actual, like once you sit and try to rest and be quote unquote comfortable, even if it's a short amount of time, if that makes you tremendously uncomfortable, then you need to also take a look at that too. There has to be a balance to where, because a lot of times what he says is busyness is an escape. It can be just another addiction.
Absolutely. To
not sit with your thoughts or to not just be.
Would you agree that it's an misunderstanding of your success and a fear of the potential incapacity to handle it? Meaning, I don't know why I'm successful, but it probably has something to do with my work. So because I don't really have a control over what's made me successful, anytime I'm not working, I'm assuming bad things are going to happen.
100%.
Right?
I think it's one of the hardest things for especially a business owner, entrepreneur,
But why is that? Is because we literally lack the ability to sit and just be present and be honest with why we're successful.
Right.
And I'll tell you, like, I've dealt with that for many, many, many years where I'm not a super smart person per se, right? For schooling and like I'm not smart. And so to be able to like connect dots, I do a pretty good job of. But to say like I have whatever I have because of these 4 items is not something I'm able to do. So you go, I spray effort, and during that spray I hit the target. So all I'm gonna do is just keep spraying effort because at least I'll hit the target. I know
Right.
I will. But if I don't spray at all, then there's no chance of me hitting the target.
Yeah.
And so you're stuck in this limbo. And I think that's where people come from, because that's where I used to come from as to why the fuck can't I chill? Like, why can't I just relax? Well, because back in the day, chilling is what was killing me.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a drug addict that's like, like an obese person who's addicted to eating. Like, well, you got to eat.
Right.
You have to rest. Well, yeah, but eating is what made me fat. Rest is what fucked my life up.
Right.
No, rest isn't what fucked your life up. It was the lack of work that fucked your life up.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I had another guest on that kind of talked about this as well, which is being intentional with your time.
Yeah.
So and that's like a term. It's like, oh yeah, be intentional with your time. But let's really dissect that. Let's explain what that actually means, right? So like for instance, or be intentional. Let's talk about fitness for a minute. Be intentional about what you eat. So like last night, I'm on an 8-week challenge right now, following my diet, and I allow myself one night a week to eat an overabundance of either carbohydrates or something that I like, right? But I'm intentional about that. So like last night, I hung out with my wife, my brother-in-law, we had our kids all over, and I knew and I had planned throughout the entire week. I'm like, I know I'm gonna have. I love tortilla chips. They're like they're like my, I don't know. They're my guilty pleasure. Any kind of like kettle potato chip, popcorn or Tostito chips, I love them.
We'll hang out.
But I don't love them every day, and I won't eat them every day. So I knew, I'm like, okay, I know we're gonna be hanging out with my brother-in-law, his wife, and the kids, and we're gonna have some fun food. So I'm gonna make sure that is my window of I know that I'm going to take in my overabundance of calories in that window. Versus like, okay, I'm not going to eat, like I'm going to follow my diet, and then I get over there and I'll be like, I have one chip, and then I eat like half a bag, and I'm like, shit. Mm-hmm. So when I say like be intentional with your choices, be intentional with your time, that kind of thing, it's like if you can plan like, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm okay with it. In fact, I'm going to plan my activity, my fitness, my other meals around doing this, right? Versus like doing it and then it's like, shit, I didn't mean to do that. I broke a promise to myself, and now I'm off the boat. Yeah. So I think being intentional, and the other thing too, going back to rest or being with your kids, it's like, I'm going to be really okay with, like today is my son's 8th birthday, and I'm going to be really okay with putting my phone away, not checking it, not worrying about what I have to do on Monday, not worrying about, the emails I have to respond to, and just be, and be 1,000% okay with that.
Yeah. Jack and I talked about it on an episode many episodes ago, but if we were to like visualize this process of gaining traction in your business or growth or success or financial freedom, whatever your goal is, but you start here and you want to end here, right? And you have these moments where it's time to play with my daughter for 4 hours, right? And you go, in those 4 hours, I could have written 6 emails and made 2 deals.
Right.
And I've lost, quote unquote, 2 days worth of progress in my business because I spent 4 hours with my daughter.
Right.
And so a lot of people, because they're so hyper-focused on the business aspect, because maybe the family doesn't mean as much to them or the relationship or whatever, they're not willing to sacrifice 2 days of progress.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I have a story to really hit this home.
Go for it right now.
So we have 2 different programs at Dad Edge. One is called Dad Edge Alliance, that's more for our career guys, our 9-to-5ers and that kind of thing.
Real quick, I want the story, but can you explain what Dad Edge is and for?
Oh yeah, sure. So the Dad Edge I founded the Dad Edge. I mean, it's really I started back in 2011. It was just a Facebook page, and to be honest, like I'm happy to. Do you want to hear the story of how it happened?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so I'll bring this high level. So I would say Dad Edge really started when I was a kid. My mom and biological father were married young, like 21 years old. They were married in 1971. I was born in 1975, which makes me 30. And so, but 10 months or whatever it was after I was born, they split up. and they got divorced, and I have no recollection of my biological father. In fact, it was kind of funny. When I was 4, I remember being in preschool, and I remember like dads coming to pick up their kids, and I knew what a dad was, and I knew I didn't have one, but I didn't care. Like in fact, I remember like internally thinking like, oh, moms go out and they find dads. Like, and my mom hasn't found my dad yet. That's fine. Whatever. She'll find him. And dude, I'll never forget when my mom told me, and I'll never forget, she was just like, hey, I'm having a friend over tonight for dinner, and I really want you to meet him. And I heard the word him, and he's a very special friend of mine, and I'm excited for you to meet him. He's going to come over for dinner tonight. His name is Joe. And I didn't say this out loud. I was like, oh, she found him. She found the dad. Like this guy Joe is my dad. So like this guy comes walking in our house, man. I'll never forget this. And I put myself in this poor man's position. He comes walking in, and he's got a trench coat on. It's the middle of winter. He's got a 3-piece suit on, the double Windsor tie, the feathered hair. He was a white collar software engineer. My mom worked with him at Citicorp back in the day. And this guy walks in my house. And I'll never forget like this male presence that I first recollection of his male presence coming in my house. I was like, oh my God, it was almost like from an instinct standpoint, like a son wants a dad, terribly, like we yearn for that. And I remember him coming in, I shook his hand, and the first words that came out of my mouth is, are you going to be my dad? Like that was the first thing. And I just remember my mom, my mom like gasped. She was like that. Like he was like, huh, well, okay. Like,
what did he say?
Oh, he was just laughed awkwardly. But like, I think my mom really took that as a sign, and she married him 6 months later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude. And they were married for 6 years. And one thing I can tell you is I think my mom really wanted to love him, but I don't think she really ever did. I think she loved the idea of it. But every year that they were married, I just remember it got progressively worse and worse and worse. And he was an alcoholic. My mom drank a lot. They fought. I mean, I was abused. He hit me a lot. Like I was pushed down, thrown down. He hit my mom. There was one night I remember when I was 6 years old, I woke up to my mom screaming at the top of her lungs. I went into their bedroom, and he was on top of her, holding her wrist down. Wasn't doing anything sexual to her. They were fighting. And I went over to him, and I'm trying to rip his hands off, and I'm like beating on his hand, and he would like pick me up on my throat and drag me back into and that was kind of like an occurrence that I wouldn't say it happened all the time, but it wasn't uncommon either. So by the time I was 10, he left. They got divorced. I've never seen him since. I found out about 12 years ago he died, but I've never seen him since. And then it was at that age I was like, wait a second, where did I come from? I knew about sex and the birds and the bees. Like, where did I come from? I asked my mom. She's like, well, you actually have a dad out there. Like I was married before, and I was like, what, are you serious? I had no idea. 2 years later, I won't go into it just for the sake of time, but I met him, and it was not planned. It was total accident. What? He lived 3 miles from us. He was remarried, had a 2-year-old son, another one on the way, and I met him. And I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, this is my real dad. And I met him, and then we had like this 6-month relationship. I saw him every single week. Just about. He came to all my like Little League games. I hung out with him and his wife, my 2-year-old half brother. And then about 6 months into it, like I just remember like things felt awkward. That's about the best way I can describe it. And I didn't hear from him as much, didn't see him as much. And then one day I just picked up the phone, 12 years old. I'm like, hey man, like, is everything okay? Like, what's going on? The best way I can describe it is think of the time where you were dating someone and they weren't into you anymore, but they haven't told you yet, but you know it's coming. That's what it felt like. And I don't even remember, Bart, like the words that conversation had. I just remember that was the end of our relationship, and he was gone again. And that sucked, man. I was in a really bad place. I failed the 8th grade. I overate. I was a fat kid. Went on to high school, went on to college. My mom continued to date, and she got married again. She got married 3 times. But every guy that came into our life was just an abuser, partier, like just a piece of shit. And it wasn't until I got married, I was 30, I'll fast forward to that. I'm in a coffee shop at 30 years old in West County here in St. Louis. I was there for a business meeting, and a guy walked in, and I just kind of like looked over, and I was like, holy shit, that's my dad. Hadn't seen him since I was 12, 18 years later. And he looked the same, just a little older, a little rounder, but looked the same. And one of the women who were on my team was also a good friend of mine, because we were there for a business meeting. There's like 3 of us. And she saw the look on my face, and she's like, are you all right? You look like you just seen a ghost. And I'm just like, I was like, you're not going to believe this. I was like, my father just walked in here, and she's like, and she knew the story. She's like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's him over there. And she's like, oh my God, what are you going to say? And I was like, nothing. I'm not going to say a word. Like, what am I going to say? I'm 30 years old. I haven't seen him since I was 12.
Yeah.
And without one word, man, without one word or warning, she just got up and walked right over to him and sat at his table and started talking to him. And I was like,
what the fuck are you doing?
I was like, what is, dude, I was just like, do I run? Do I go to the bathroom? Do I leave? Like, what do I do?
Because you genuinely didn't want to talk to him.
I didn't. Well, it was just too awkward. I was curious.
Okay.
But I wasn't
curious as to why.
I was just curious to talk to him. Like, and you got
that feeling,
questions,
right?
But I also wasn't willing to do it either. And so all of a sudden, like, he looked around, because she went over to him. She's like, hey, I just want to let you know, your son's in here, and you do yourself a lot of favors to meet him. You've never been a part of his life. And he, like, looked around, and our eyes met, and I was just like, what is about to happen? He stood up, came over, shook my hand. He's like, hey, how are you? And I was like, fine, how are you? I wasn't an asshole, but I wasn't nice. I was kind of in between. But anyway, that interaction has now turned into 19 years of a relationship, and we've got a great relationship, and he's still married to the same woman. I have two younger half brothers that one of them, I'm seeing them all today.
Oh yeah.
So it turned out really good. But here's how Dad Edge got started. I knew, because of my upbringing, I was like, I want to be a good father. I really do. And it's so important to me to be married one time. And I got to tell you, for the first 6 years of me being a dad and the first 9 years of my marriage, that was not happening. I wasn't doing anything horrible. Like, I wasn't beating anybody, getting drunk or anything like that, or yelling or abusing anyone, but I really wasn't in it either. I was kind of in that comfort zone, right? Of like, I'm not doing anything, but I'm not being terrible either. It was right in the middle, which sucked. It wasn't until the worst thing that happened. I always promised myself one thing, because I was hit and abused so much as a kid. I was like, I will never strike my children out of anger, ever. Well, you trained my son Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when Mason was 4, I had a horrible day at work. I lost my number one customer that was going to impact our income for the next 18 months, because I was in medical device sales, and we were moving, and I hate moving. And I'm packing up the kids' playroom, and I'm just freaking pissed out of my mind. I feel like a failure. And plus, like, I had this mediocre marriage, and I wasn't patient with my kids, and I was just like, everything just sucked.
Yeah.
And Mason came downstairs, 4 years old, and I just got done packing up his playroom, because we were getting ready to move. And I said, hey, man, I just got done packing up your playroom. I'm going to take a break. I was like, please don't get anything out of the boxes, but you can play with these toys here. Well, for some idiotic reason, I thought a 4-year-old would listen to that. Like, I know better now. Like, what the hell was wrong with me to think that was like, it's almost like putting treats on the ground for your dog. Be like, don't eat that.
Yeah, I'll be back later.
Right. So I come back, and what do you think I see? Yeah. There's stuff everywhere. So what did I do in a heat of rage? Everything that had led up to that. It wasn't just the day of, like, losing that customer. It was everything. I spanked him. And I spanked him. I didn't realize at the time, but I spanked him so hard he fell. And when he fell, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Right? And then I went to go pick him up, and he did this, like literally, don't hurt me. And I was like, fuck. And that was it. That was it. When I saw the look in his eye of fear, I was like, no more. No more. I'm done with this. And that was the night that I went into my office, and I didn't even mean to do this. I'm just scrolling on Facebook, and there was a button that said create a page. Never created a page. And I don't know if it was my faith, divine intervention, or what, but like, I was praying, and I was crying, and I was upset, and I just hit that button. Said, what do you want to name your page? I just said The Good Dad Project. The funny thing is The Good Dad Project was me. Like, I was the project. Yeah. I was like, I need help. Yeah. So, like, I just decided to create that page because I want to go out and learn something new every day, and I was just going to post it there for myself. But one thing led to another. That was, 13 years ago. And now I would have never expected that what was the Good Dad Project is now the Dad Edge has turned into the podcast that it is, the community that it is. And it all started with me being a dumbass and a horrible moment. And I still have bad moments. I still fall on my face. But in a nutshell, the Dad Edge now is a podcast. It's a movement. It's a mission to help men be the best version of themselves so they can be the best father they can be, the best husband they can be, and we do it with a community base where we're teaching skills and creating space for men to learn and grow. But that's really it.
Wow.
That's the dad edge.
Yeah, I mean, that talk about presence, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's times where a client and I were talking. You know, a lot of people confide in me, and it's a common thing. Like the worry about, am I a good parent?
Yeah.
Like the worry is how you know you're a good parent. You might not have the skills yet, but like the fact that you care enough to be a good parent already makes you a better parent than any parent that doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. If you're concerned, it's on your radar.
Yeah.
If you're like, it doesn't really, if you're checked out, that's pretty obvious too. But here's what I'll tell you. You can still be concerned and not growing.
Sure.
Of
course.
And you can still be like, well, shouldn't I? It's the action and the skills and the things that you learn, and then implement that make the biggest difference.
I mean, that's something that not enough people do, just in general.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people acknowledge, if you sit them down and say, why is your life fucked up? And they'll give you every fucking answer.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, then why is it still fucked up?
Yeah.
And they can't give you any answers.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know why I keep doing these things.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep letting my plates get so full that I take it out on my wife or my
Yeah.
kids or my this or my that or myself.
Well, have you ever heard of the 3 types of men?
Give it to me.
Or the 3 types of human beings, anyway.
Let's do it.
So there's the victim, the content zombie, and the executor.
Okay.
So the victim, and we've all lived in these camps, and sometimes we actually live in these camps in different areas of our lives. Like I just got over being injured, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of in a victim camp with my fitness and my even my mentality. I was basically saying, well, it's because of my knee, it's because of this, because of that. Like I just couldn't, and that's victim, right? A victim will, hey, like what's going on with your life? They'll tell you what's wrong and every reason why it's wrong. And here's the crazy thing too. From a psychological standpoint, a victim will also go out and subconsciously search for proof.
No doubt.
So like if you like, I'm just not a patient father, and you like lose your shit on your kids, be like, see, I told you I'm not a patient father. I'm just not that guy. So that's the victim. And the victim will constantly give you excuses and reasons why they can't, right? The content zombie, now zombie is like I think a negative term that people are just like, that kind of sucks. Well, it actually sucks less than the victim. And what I mean by that is the content zombie is tired of being a victim. Mm-hmm. But what the content zombie is doing is they're the ones who are out like just taking in like 8 to 10 hours of podcasts a week. They're watching YouTube videos on growth. Like they're going maybe even to conferences or something, but it's information,
Yeah.
but without execution.
Right.
So like the content zombie be like, I'm learning all these things, but nothing's getting better. It's like, well, what are you implementing? Or they'll try it for
I
a
don't
minute.
know enough yet.
Right.
I need another strategy.
Yeah. I don't really know. I'm still learning. The executor is like, okay, you know what? I just learned how to, I just learned how to use tactical empathy using emotional labels with my wife through conversation, right? So now I'm going to go out and do that. I know I just shared a skill. It's one of the skills that we teach. But I'm going to go out and do that now. I'm not just going to say, I'm not going to just take in content on how to be a better listener. I'm actually going to go do it now. Mm-hmm. And they go do it. And they're actually held accountable to go do it. So that's the executor.
Okay, so you and I have both been around our childhoods with no internet, and right?
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
like we can relate to this.
Yeah.
I thought about this literally earlier with Mason. During our session, I talked about this. There's an anxiety now based on the content zombie concept, right? Because as the more information you consume, the understanding that you have endless amounts more to consume also comes prevalent. So as I learn more, I figure out I know less.
Yeah.
And that's why people stay stuck, is they go, I don't know enough because I don't have enough. When there was no internet, like there were no answers anywhere. Right?
Yeah.
You didn't know when movies were playing. You didn't know what the weather was going to be. You didn't know nothing, right? We didn't know what the time the Super Bowl was, Mason and I. So we Googled it in half a fucking second. We knew right away, right?
Right.
Back then, you'd be like, well, we just have to kind of wait and see when it comes on.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe I wasn't conscious about the concept, but it was my opinion that there was a lot less anxiety communitively when there was no answers.
Yeah.
Now there's endless answers and endless anxiety.
Yeah.
That has to be connected.
I 1,000% agree with that. Cause like, so Ethan, cause he does an internship here.
Yeah.
Ethan is, I don't know if you've picked up on this, but Ethan is an old soul.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. He's
absolutely.
And basically like he's one of those kids that he's just, he's kind of like, he likes AC/DC. He likes the old rock bands, but he constantly is like, life was simpler when you grew up, Dad. And he'll like send me these TikTok videos of like kids in high school in the like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And they're all dressed in like goofy like 80s and 90s stuff, but he'll send me these videos and be like, it's fascinating. And then I'll show the video to Mason, Ethan, and the kids. I'm like, what do y'all see here? And they'll pick up on it right away. They're like, everyone is interacting with everyone. Like they're actually talking to each other. When they're walking the halls, they're like this. They're not doing this.
Yeah.
Right. And
I have never even thought of that.
Yeah. And the AirPods and all that, like nobody's plugged in. Your way of interacting and even getting information or relationships had to be the people that were physically present in your physical circle, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
And I was like, and Ethan always tells me, he's like, I wish I would have grown up. And this is where I think it's the old soul in him. I wish I would have grown up when you did. He's like, I want to like have conversations with people. I want to talk to people, but he's like, everyone is in their phone or everyone is plugged in. And it's like this constant search for either entertainment, information, or whatever. It's endless. And I think, you know, even Steve Jobs, when he was developing the iPad and iPhone, he wouldn't let his kids have it.
Shit.
He knew the addictive nature in that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's obviously something that's a problem because it's creating a lot of issues. But like, when you unplug the drain out of the tub and it's swirling, like how do you get that water back out of the fucking hole, man? Like once we're in this capacity where this human's understanding of social interaction comes through a device, like how the hell what do we do?
I don't know.
You know?
I mean, I think there's a company I just interviewed. It was two dads that came up with it. It's called Aro, A-R-O, which I think is, I can't remember they said it, but I think it's like Greek for non-distracted or something like that. But it's this box, and it's like kind of like that when they developed this box, they said it was wife decorative approved. It's a very neutral looking box, but it's kind of cool looking. It looks like something. But you plug your phones into it. You open up the box. It'll take 4 phones at a time. And then there's an RO app that actually measures your time away from your phone. So we have this device that measures your screen time, right? Like the phone does that automatically, but RO will actually measure your time that you are not even physically with your phone. Because most people be like, oh, well, I put my phone away, it's in my pocket. I'm like, if you feel it buzz, it's going to take you out of the moment anyway. Or if it's on the counter, like you and I, like my phone's been going crazy. I've seen yours ring, and it has taken guaranteed our presence. So even away from this interview, I know I have on my end. But think about like if this thing was away and in a box, it's almost like suddenly like that anxiety to go check something. It's like, oh, it's in the RO box. It's not there. And it's almost like a breath of fresh air. It feels weird at first, but it's a breath of fresh air.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, because again, when I was a kid, the reason it was breath of fresh air is because there was not like right now, we have ourselves, right? Let's say we're present. 2 feet away from me is endless weight.
Yeah.
Endless information. Yeah. Endless knowledge. Yeah. Endless furniture I could buy. Endless fucking people I can meet. Yeah. Endless. It's so heavy. You take that fucker away, dude. I have 2 people.
Yeah.
A turned off TV and a fucking forest.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like, well, fuck yeah. Like it sounds way better for that, versus the first. But again, it's Pandora's box, man. Once you understand the power and the capacity and the potential, like our brains as a survivor goes, we'll probably need that information. Yeah. We probably need it for survival. Yeah. We need to know what's going to happen. Yeah. Because right now, like, I'm talking to your boys and, other kids that I train, like they don't participate unless they know all of the answers. Yeah. I gave Mason an example this morning. I go, when I used to go places, I would find out where it's from a friend. I would get close and then have to ask random people on the fucking street where the building was, and then figure out where I'm supposed to go once I get there. Yeah. Now, if you sent a kid to go do that, or an adult to just be like, hey, I need you to go find this red building. Okay, what's the address? I don't know. And they're like, well, I'm not going. Right. Exactly. Is it safe? Is it not safe? What's it look like? Where do I go? Who do I ask for? I don't know any of those answers, bro. And they're just not willing to figure that out. So I'm sure you talking to a lot of the dads that you do, and especially maybe different socioeconomic positions. I would assume that the people who are able to get shit done are the ones who can go find the red building and be okay not knowing where to go and who to talk to and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you can get yourself to be that guy, like, what can't you do?
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
Because if everyone else is waiting around for those answers and you're already over there figuring them out on your own, like, you're ahead of the game.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I share one other thing about you spending time with Mason?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan in I am not going to be the only influential male in my kids' lives. Like I am much of the fan of like I want a variety.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, of like-minded men in my kids' lives, and I'll share with you why. So each and when I say like-minded, I really mean like-minded or better than, right? So I took Ethan on a rite of passage called the Squire, which is Bedros Keuilian out in California, and it's run by Navy SEALs, and it's a really cool crucible that a father and son go through, but it's other like-minded men who just want the best for you and your son and teaching life lessons and all those things, right? So like with Ethan, I'm like, hey, like, what do you think, Mr. Steve would say about that? Who's a Marine recon, right? Or what do you think Ray, who's a Navy SEAL, would say about that, right? And what you learned at the Squire. I love having guys like you in Mason's life as well. Like you can go get football training anywhere, but I told him, I was like, hey, and I was hoping he'd say yes. I was really pushing for it, and he said yes right away. I was like, I'd like you to go see Bart. And he's like, yeah, cool. I was like, all right, cool. But the thing is like, I know Bart will get you ready, right, physically. But what I want is for Bart to pour in all of his growth mindset into you when he's training you. Like I want those words. I want that inspiration. I want that encouragement. I want that different viewpoint, right, that I can't give him that you can. Mm-hmm. And Bart is going to say things to Mason that I'm not. But and Mason's going to listen, right? Because the volume is turned up for dads to some degree when it comes to the kids. But it's turned up in other areas that they're just not. Like, I can say something 15 times, and then you say it once, and it's going to sink in, and I like that. But I'm much of a fan of, like, hey, you should be the man in your kids' lives, whether you have a son or a daughter, but also find other like-minded people that are going to inspire them, that are going to push them to grow, that are going to do better, and you're one of those for him, and I think that's so important.
That means more to me than you'll ever freaking know, man.
Yeah.
All I've ever wanted to be is like a dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that I think that's like a not a position of blood. I think that's a character trait.
Yeah.
To be a dad. It's
yeah.
like be a leader.
Right.
And the fact that you just said that, dude, that means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah.
I don't.
There was a diabolical plan.
A lot deeper than I thought it was. Me like, yeah, I'll make your kid a beast, no problem, bro. Yeah. But it's true, man. Mason and I have such a great time because the kids. You have great kids, man. That's the bottom, man. From It's so refreshing to see because, again, what we just mentioned, there's so much fear because what your kids have let you know is like there's a lot of people who aren't even engaged in reality. They're not here, right? So then you go, what the fuck's the future going to be like for my 3-year-old daughter? Because Mason is, I don't know how many years older, 12, 13 years older than my daughter. He's going to be orchestrating and running shit that my daughter's going to have to run up into, right? Well, as a dad, you're fucking terrified because you're like, the organizers are going to be these idiots who don't know where they are and they're fucking putting dots on the screen that they have the little goggle sets now. You've seen those. Like, that's terrifying. So these type of moments for me are like a breath of fresh air because I go, no, this concept that we're going to breed into the next generation is alive and well. Yeah. Okay. May it be the majority? Maybe not. But the fact that it exists means there's going to be a difference in their lives that we can have something to do with.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Same thing with Ethan, though, too. Like, the environment that you've created here in your gym. I mean, it's safe to say that there are other gyms, right?
Of course.
In the area. And even where we live, there's one that's closer. When Ethan was trying to figure out what internship he was going to do, he was like, I want to do it at a gym. I was like, you should go do it at Project Power. And he's like, yeah, I think I will. And I was so happy to hear that because I was like, I know the culture that he's going to be around. Mm-hmm. I know the growth mindset he's going to be around. I know he's not going to be around knuckleheads who people walk into the gym and they don't even get acknowledged.
Right.
Like you've created something here that is super special. that not only from a mindset perspective, but also like a culture perspective where people grow here as a community, right? And you don't get that in run-of-the-mill gyms, but you get that here.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why I think it's good that my sons have people like you and the people that are on your team in their lives, because they're learning valuable lessons from you and the guys here.
That's always been since day one, since before I even took the place over. That was always the thing. I go, what are we upset about in society? Let's be the change. Let's be the difference. It all starts with us, right? Andy says the success is the ultimate rebellion, right? So if I'm bitching about people not putting their shit away, not putting their carts away, not saying hi to me when I walk into places, not giving a shit if I sign up or not caring about what is going on in my life, I can't say all those things. And then when I do have the opportunity to make it so, not try to make it so. And I agree with you 100% with my team, because what I think is fine and dandy. One person is not powerful enough to change the world, right? So I can think I'm right till I'm blue in the face, but the market tells me if I'm right or not. And when it comes to human psychology, my team has proven that this is not a hocus pocus, shit show thing. This is a legit revolutionary concept that people are thirsty for. They want to take pride in their work. They want to accomplish something great. They want to do it together with like-minded people. They want to be accountable. They want to take next strides for their next steps together, legitimately. And it's not bullshit, because there's people who I don't have my thumb on, and they still execute all of those tactics.
Yeah, it's the culture, right?
That's right.
I mean, I was just in here this past week working out with Ethan twice. And, I'm in the habit of not re-racking my weights. I mean, I've been in the gym for 30 years and be like, Dad, re-rack the weights. And I do it, and he come over and he turn it right. I'm like, oh, crap, you're right. And then I walk away, just habit sometimes, not cleaning it. And he's like, did you clean that?
I love that.
And dude, he holds me to the fire of the culture and the expectations that you've created here. He holds that, right? And I love the fact that he holds that, because as a dad, I'm like, sure, I'm embarrassed he's calling me out, but I'm also really happy, because here's the thing. Now, because he's learned that from you, right? He's keeping his room cleaner. He's doing his dishes better. His grades are great. I mean, his grades have always been pretty good, but like there's that conscious effort that I see now, that the tweaks of excellence, right? And I know he's picking that up from places from here, right? And there's something to be said about that. Like I said, you can go to any gym out there, do an internship, but you're not going to get those life lessons that you're creating here. And I think, again, just to hit this home for dads, as dads out there look for other men to be an inspiration or a part of your kids' lives, look for the outliers. Look for the ones that are not the run-of-the-mill. Look for the ones that are going to pour into your kids, whether that be their fitness, their wealth, their health, their faith, whatever it is. Get those other people in the room with your kids.
Yeah, man. Can I say, I appreciate the compliment, but what I got out of that, which I thought was very cool, that I did not have with my dad, is your son felt comfortable enough to tell you that, hey, Dad, you messed up.
Yeah.
Without retribution and without disrespect.
Right.
Because he didn't do it like, oh, I got him now. He always kicks my ass, but I'm going to kick his ass now, because that's one way kids go.
Yeah.
And then the other way is, my way, I could not in a million years tell my dad that he fucked something up. Dude, bro,
Same.
Can you imagine if I'm like, Dad, you didn't push your chair in? Bro, my life after that would not be good.
I do with my mom. She'd be like, do as I say, not as I do.
My mom too. My mom too. I mean, I'm taking care of my mom, and she's all right. You disrespect. I'm like, dude. So you shouldn't lose that. I want you to stay aware with that, because like you've done such an amazing job with your boys, but dude, it's a reflection of you.
Oh, thanks, man.
Of course. And that big thing right there, that again, you might not even notice as a big thing, but you have the relationship enough that this kid is growing up to be a man, respecting you as a man. And then he's going to do that same thing with their kids.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's in the approach, because like, just as he respects me and his delivery, I do the same with him.
Of course.
Cause like, I mean, I have to keep him in check on some things. Like right now he has Snapchat on his phone, but he doesn't have Snapchat on his phone right now because he actually got a D in one of his classes, which is, I told him, I was like, if you want to keep Snapchat on your phone, you have to have a C or better in all classes. And he got a D in his last semester. He's bringing it up now. But like the delivery of that is like, when I got when I crossed the line, man, you just got freaking blasted, man.
Blasted.
Like blasted. So, you know, we made this agreement early on. He got this grade, and I'm like, and just my delivery was this, like, hey, you got a D in botany, which ridiculous. Botany, yes. It's
Botany.
It's ridiculous. I'm sitting there thinking, like, I can't, like, you're not even gonna ever
Botany.
fucking use this, right? But yeah, botany is a science class, and he has to take in school. I was like, you got a D in that. I was like, so you remember our agreement, right? And he's like, yes, I do. I was like, what does our agreement say? He's like, I can't have Snapchat until I bring that grade up. I was like, yeah. I was
Expectation
like,
set.
I was like, so I need you to delete it off the phone. He's like, okay. And it was gentle.
Yeah.
It was calm.
Right.
It wasn't like, what?
Yeah.
You got a D? You know what this means, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, dude, that's a man thing to have set expectations, right? We have roles, we have duties, we have consequences, we have, expectations set. This is not an emotional thing.
No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who I was talking to, but I think it's funny. We're getting a little bent out of shape with the role concept in society because everyone's so adamant about, like, everyone's allowed to do everything and anyone can do anything that anyone else can do. And, right? Okay. So obviously that's a whole topic, but what organization on the face of the planet that runs well has the perception that anyone can do anything within? If my accountant goes, I don't want to do accounting today, why do I always have to do accounting? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you do accounting today?
Yeah.
Motherfucker, you're the accountant. So why are we having this conversation?
Right.
And then when he doesn't do accounting, there's write-ups, right? Okay, this is what happens the first time we're late on this. This is the second time. This is the third time. So when I go to his office, I go, hey, listen, this is what happened. Here's your consequence. Can you sign off for it, please? Thank you. All right. Have a good day, dude. See you later. But we don't do that in the most important organization with your family. The disconnect, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So again, you've set expectations with your children. You tell them what's going to happen if this happens or that happens. And then when it happens, you go, here you go.
Yeah.
Everything has been out in the open.
Right.
What my dad didn't do is none of that. There was zero expectations. It was, you had to be perfect or I'm going to be in your ass so far that you can't sit. Right.
Yeah.
So, man, we need about 4 more hours, so I'm gonna bring you back. This is gonna be a
Joe
month.
Rogan.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan
Yes.
style.
Yes. We're renting out the week.
Yeah.
Larry, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah,
we got it. We'll cut it, but always a pleasure, dude. Anytime you have the opportunity, I'd love to sit down with you and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
The Dad Edge. Okay, get on there. You probably already are. So if you are on there, go on ours now. Click like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Larry, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, brother.
Go kick ass. Peace!